Do you want to bring balance to all the wireless radiation fields in your life, including 5G? The Omnia Radiation Balancer is a small sticker you can stick on any device. It changes the state of the field and creates a new resonance between the wireless radiation and your energy field. On the link below, you'll see all our testing results that show how the body responds excellently once you've made this change in your life. And here's a special offer for the Journey to Truth crowd. Just enter the word truth in caps at the checkout for your 10% discount. It's easy to bring balance back to your body with the Omnia Radiation Balancer.
Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 with Daryl. I know we kind of left you guys hanging last episode. Some absolutely fascinating stuff, and we're just really getting started. This is we're so grateful to have you coming forward, Daryl, and doing this and sharing all this information. You got into a lot of stuff I wasn't even expecting. So before we jump into your testimony, when we finished up last time, you had told us something off camera. I was wondering if you wanted to share this guy who was telling you all this stuff. He shared something with you about Steven Spielberg. And
yeah, he talked about Heather O'Rourke, and he talked about how Steven Spielberg and what's that guy's name? The Fonz. Oh,
the Fonz?
Yeah.
Oh, Henry Winkler?
Henry Winkler, yeah. Him and Henry Winkler and a couple movie producers, they killed Heather O'Rourke, and it was some sort of like they raped her to death, and that's how she got the her intestines ruptured, and I think she died from, what is that, septic shock, when you die from feces going into your bloodstream and everything else from your intestines rupturing.
And wow, well, that's one way to start off an episode, right?
Yeah. I just thought that was an important point. He wanted to bring that up, and just how corrupt and just how bad like Hollywood is. Like, it's not good. He said there's literally like a handful. You can count on one hand how many decent people there are in Hollywood.
So
wow.
Can you explain who this girl is for people who don't know, who might not know?
Oh, she's They're Here girl from the old Poltergeist movies.
Mm-hmm.
She was like a platinum blonde, blue-eyed girl.
Mm-hmm.
She just died like out of the blue, like, and it was just, she had a fever, and you could tell it was like a cover-up. You could just tell. I don't know. It was the way they handled it and everything else.
Wow. Well, sorry guys for jumping into that right off the bat like that. But this information has got to surface at some point, right? So let's get into your actual time in the programs. So you, when you started getting your memories back, what happened? What were you doing during your 20 and back?
Well, first I was on the moon for punishment for poking the reptile in the eye. And there's something that they do to people who, if you wrong the wrong person, he even told me, Robert said they do this, rape an admiral's daughter or hostilize one of their kids or something like that. And if you get caught doing it, they'll actually, and if they have access to the space program, they'll actually put you in for 40 years of hard labor on the moon, and they won't wipe your memories. And that's when he told me that, like, people that don't get their memories wiped barely make it 6 months. He said they usually don't make it 6 months, and it's like a punishment kind of thing. And that's why they had me there, just for poking this thing in the eye. And he said they're going to do that to you, is what he told me. And that same German was there, and he was a first-class petty officer, the one that said I should have you killed for what you did to my man. And he was just always just giving me a hard time on the moon. And that's something else I should probably get out of the way that I'm not happy about, is like, that first class was a German, off-world German. There's a senior chief who was an off-world German that had a mustache, skinny senior chief. The heavy-set master chief of the base, who was third in command, he was an off-world German. The doc, I think he was a lieutenant. The doctor of the base was an off-world German. The legal officer, who I think was a lieutenant, was an Waffle German. And I remember saying to him, I was like, well, the Germans are, because I kind of remembered it. And I said, well, they're all like in really good shape, you know, like why are some of them fat, some of them skinny? I said, is it the tech in them? Because they have the tech in them. And I said, did they speed up and slow down their metabolisms? And he said, yes. And I said, why do they do that? And he shrugged his shoulders and he said, we can't have a bunch of Ubermen on base. He just said that, like a bunch of like built dudes. Like we can't just have a bunch of, I said, wow, talk about attention to detail. He said, yeah. It was just like a way to like keep them incognito. They would slow down their metabolism. They would speed them up, things like that, make them fat, make them skinny. And anyways, yeah, that German was there, and they had shot collars on us. And I just remember putting like drill bits deeper and deeper, you know, like the big auger bits of like you see like when they for oil and stuff like that, we're drilling into the moon with those. And they had like, you know, like a brothel on base. I remember one time there were some Germans and they said, get those honeypots up there. And that's what they called the women. They called them honeypots, not in the sense that they were there to like trap anybody, but in the sense that they were there as like incentive to work. That was like your only incentive to work was sex. And then, you know, they would take the kids, I guess if their scores weren't high enough, IQ or whatever, and then that they would be, you know, the kids they would use for adrenochrome. They would just send them right through that portal, and they would through different portals, and they would just put them on underground bases and cages and stuff like that after they got to like, I don't know, a certain age. But I remember when you're new, there's something it's called density sickness, where everything gets all of a sudden you just see nothing but blurs, and it's just like high pitched like squeals and squeaks, and you don't know what's happening. And you'll just come to, and there'll be like some guy like holding you by the shoulders saying, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" And you say, "Yeah," and it's okay. You just got density sickness. And then when you see it happen to other people, it's just like they become like statues. And I remember first time I saw another guy it happened to, somebody said, "Hold him." And I grabbed his arm, and I just to see, and I like lifted his arm up and down. He said, "Don't do that. You're way too fast for him." He's like, "You'll hurt him." And I was like, "Oh." And the guy snapped out of it. But that happens for like the first month.
Is that why they put you in that chair that brought you from 3rd to 5th density?
Yeah, you can't interact with ETs if you're not 5th density, because the ETs that we work with and stuff, they're all 5th density beings, and if you're 3rd density, you know, you can't interact with them. Your IQ goes up like a couple hundred points. You get much stronger. You get much faster. So it's almost like once you get bumpy, these things seem really off-world and amazing and everything else, but as soon as you get up to 5th density, you can just kill them like anything else. You know what I mean? They seem like godly and off-worldly and everything else, but as soon as you get up to their level of density, they're not like that big of a deal anymore.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So then you did your time as a slave on the moon, and what happened after that?
Yeah, 3 months, and then I remember the Robert was there, the XO. He was, like I said, he would just like kind of check up on me, and he said to another German, he was talking to him, and then that German came up with like a box, and he kind of waved it over me or something, and he started chewing out the first class petty officer German. It got me stuck here in the first place. He was yelling at him in German, and then the guy called me over, and I said, "Yes, sir," and he said, "Come over here," and they strapped me to a table. And I remember there was like one of those tall white grays, like the really tall ones, like in a corner. And they call them drones, like the small little grays. They're kind of khaki. And they're basically just like, like soulless machines. And they're not very smart, but you can program them to do something. They can do it like a machine. And he strapped me to it. They grabbed me by the arms. And they strapped me to like this bed, like my forehead, my chest, everything else. And then I remember there was this guy just in like a mask and a hood on. And he said, he showed a needle. He put a needle in my face. And it was like a turkey basting needle. And he said, "I'm going to use this to put your brain implant in." And I was just kind of like, "What?" No. And he just cracked it right through my skull. And I was yelling. And then it flipped the table over. And they put like a spinal tap. And they injected something into my spine. And they threw me in a room for like a day. And then they took me out. And they hosed me down. And they gave me a bunch of uniform clothes. And they gave me a duffel bag to put it all in. They gave me clothes to put on. And then I went to this ship, and I was in the Dark Fleet. It was like that fast. And then I was under a woman who was a pilot, and I was, she was teaching me to be a pilot. And I remember I put my, when I got to the room, I had my guitar already there. I had like a classical guitar and the whole setup. It was all ready for me. It was like I was an officer now, but in the Dark Fleet instead. And I remember
So the opposite of what you requested.
Yeah. What I thought was going to happen, it was like the Germans just took me instead. And so, but I had no memories of that. You know what I mean? They wipe your mind. It's like you're very naive. You're like you're like a 3-year-old that still knows how to speak and reason and everything else.
So you mean at this point in the programs, you had no memory of your conversation with your XO as far as agreeing?
Like, they were telling you stuff like you were leftover stuff from like a war or something like that, and the Earth didn't exist anymore. And it was like having a regular job where like everybody told you different things, so it just confused you more, you know. So you really didn't know what to believe. And
like it is here on Earth. Exactly like it is on Earth here, actually.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Seriously,
exactly. Yeah. So I had my hand on the table one time, and I had my picking nails long. And the first officer said, "You need to cut your nails." And he was the first officer of this ship, or not the first officer, but the first officer. He was the XO of this ship, I guess, the second in command of this ship. And I got to know that guy pretty well. And he said, "Well, I said I play classical guitar, and I'd really like to keep on playing it, sir." And he said, "How long have you been playing?" And I said, "I don't know, like about a month." He said, "How long do you think you play in front of a crowd?" I said, "Probably 2 more months." He's like, "Well, you have another month." And I started playing for them. They had like a bar on base. There was like a horseshoe bar, and the women sat on the bar. The men sat on like round tables on the floor with 4 chairs each on the table, and I was playing there. And I got popular and doing that. And I remember sometimes the warrior cast would come in of reptiles. They were the big ones, like I saw the first one that strapped me in, and they would just stand by the door and watch me play. And then eventually I got up to the point where I started playing for like the royal cast, and they were just like I said before, they looked kind of like sketchy. They were just like, the snouts weren't as long, but they were just shorter, and they were like really decrepit. And there was that part when I first joined the Dark Fleet where we were, I guess they called him the master, the head reptile of the ship, and he walked on, and they were all trembling. Everybody around me was like really shaking and trembling. I didn't know why. I couldn't figure it out. And I never saw one before. And I wasn't looking at it. I was just looking at the ground, but they were all just shaking, like crying almost. And he hit something. I think he pushed something on a belt or something, and it made me like fall to the ground and like start throwing up. Like it did something to my implant, I think. And then the German came up and it walked away. And then the head German came up, the captain of the ship. And he started yelling at me in German. I didn't know what he was saying, but I could kind of tell he was pointing at the vomit and telling me to clean it up. So I went to go somewhere to get something to clean it up with. And he shocked me again, and I fell on the ground. And so I just took my shirt off, and I like sweeped it up with my shirt. And I just stood there at attention with my shirt in front of me. And I guess that was good enough. And he walked away. And then like later on, I guess the next day, oh gosh, sorry about that. But the next day, the first officer.
my dogs hear that and they're barking now. That's funny.
That's hilarious.
It's okay.
The first officer got me, and he said, "Come with me," and I came with him, and then he took me into the back of the ship, and it got darker. You can always tell when you're going like where the reptiles were, because it was the aft of the ship, and it got really dark. He took me into a room, and there was like a naked man sitting on a table, and he had long hair like down to his face, down to his chin, and he was just kind of like head drooped down. He was looking at the ground, and the German said, "Get him," and I grabbed him by the arm, and he wouldn't go, so I kind of pushed his hair out of the way to say, like, make eye contact, say, "Come on, we got to go." And when he looked up at me, it was me. It was a clone of me. It was exactly me.
Wow.
And we both like recognized. You get like this weird bond when you first see a clone, where you just it's like seeing a long lost twin for the first time. And he just immediately jumped down. It was like he trusted me, and I grabbed him by the arm. And I walked him out. We walked right across the hall, and we went into another room, and it had like a vaulted ceiling where you could see everything. It was clear, and you could see all the space, and it was just like nebulous clouds, like pinks and purples and blues and greens. And then it was a long table, and the master was sitting like at the head of the table. And there were 3 reptiles in the like on the other side of the table, like just looking at me. And he grabbed the clone. He said, "Give me that." And then he told the clone. He said, "Look at him." And then he bit his arm off. He just took it right off with his hand, with his mouth. He just bit it right off. And the German put me like in a headlock, so I couldn't do anything. And the Germans are genetically augmented in the womb, so they're much stronger than any man. And he
Wow.
just ate his arm, and then it was getting woozy, and he kind of slapped its face, and then he said, look at him," and it looked at me, and he just bit his throat out, and he bled out, and he was just holding him by the back of the neck, and I remember him like going limp, like his eyes rolling back in his head, and he went limp, and then he just like, it was almost like he enjoyed watching me more than he enjoyed eating this person. He was just watching me the whole time, just watching. It was like he was feeding off my fear.
Yeah,
and then
of course. I've heard that
yeah.
I mean, Johan said that like they'll eat the clones and they'll throw them in like a regen tank and eat them again. And it's just insane how they do that. If you think about it, and having to witness that, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and he threw it behind him, and the other three just tore it apart, and they let me watch that for a while, and then the German took me back, and then that was that. And then I started working on Mars, and all the time they kept on telling me stuff like, when you get back after your 20 years, they started telling me because they started liking me. I started getting like more pull with them and stuff. I became almost like a sergeant or a chief almost, where I started like breaking in like German recruits out of the academy and stuff like that. And they would tell me like, when you get back from your 20 years, they're gonna torture you to death. They're gonna eat you alive. He's like, you might not want to come back. So I kind of had like a mentality of this. I guess I'd just rather die out there and be tortured to death for days. And so I just took a lot of risk, and they noticed that. And then
so when you left the moon and joined Dark Fleet, was that you just like got assigned to a ship or craft, and then until you made it to Mars, or did you go straight to Mars?
We did mostly just missions on Mars, over Mars. We hovered around Mars.
Okay.
Yeah, we were just sticking around Mars.
You were on a ship. You were on a craft most of the time then.
Yeah. We were on a craft most of the time. I think one time we were allowed to go to the home world or something like that. And then this is before anything else happened. And we had to stay in like almost like a gymnasium or something like that. Like they kind of locked us down. It was almost like a military thing. Like we couldn't leave this room or something. I remember something like that. But anyways, yeah, I was doing that. And there's like, I remember one time, the first time I went on the Mars, the first officer, he was checking my gear, and he said, when you, there's mantises, we were trying to catch mantises. They're really good at genetics and things like that. And the reptiles wanted them for questioning. And they said the mantises are very telepathic. And if they go into a cave, don't follow them because there's spiders in there. He said 3 meters in diameter. And he said they're about as smart as dogs, but the mantises can control them. So I would just cloak them every time I saw them. And I remember I had like a brand new German with me, and the mantis ran into the cave, and he went to go running in after him. And I said, stop. I told him to stop, and he wouldn't stop. And 3 spiders came out, and he shot the first 2, and the third one got him. And it just kind of cut him in half. And it made me jump back. When I saw it, I didn't expect it, and it knew right away, like where I was. They could pick up the vibrations. That's why it lives in caves, because I don't think they spin webs. I think they just use the caves as like their webs, because there's so many sandstorms, so many smaller. There's a lot of like monitor lizards and stuff like that on Mars and stuff. So then there's sandstorms all the time, so they'll go in these caves. And yeah, it came right at me, and I shot it. And it sounded like a wounded rabbit, like a screaming rabbit. And yeah, that was a memory that I have.
So it sounds like they just try to desensitize you as much as they can by letting you witness all of these events, I guess.
I don't know. So yeah, I was in a Dark Fleet for a while, and they were going to give me a German citizenship. I know you kind of want a faster process, right?
Well,
you want me to go to the next?
Whatever is relevant, if it's important to the story, if it, go ahead and share it.
I mean, I remember the reptiles were congratulating me. I was really good. I got just about anybody they told me to go get. And I don't think they ever did that. And there was like a different kind of German. He was almost like a general of some sort. And sorry, I'm gonna go put those out back. Put the dogs out back. But yeah, he was like a general of sorts, and he took me back, and I remember the reptile said that I'll tell the ones back on Earth to be easy on you, like, to not hurt you that badly when you get back. And the one German, they took me to a separate room, and he was like a general or an admiral or something, a visitor, and he said they're not going to be any easier on you. They're gonna torture you to death. They're gonna eat you alive, and it'll take days. And I said, all right. And he said, we looked up your record, and you don't have any, you don't have a wife or children. Your only living relatives are your mother and your sister. We want you to join the Dark Fleet full time. And I said, and I thought about it, and I said, I could do that, sir, but I want something in return. He's like, well, what do you want? And I said, permission to speak freely. And he said, go ahead. And I said, are there horses on your world? I remember I said that. And he said, I own 2 horses. And I said, I like horses. I think they're beautiful animals. And I said, thought about it. And I said, well, I want to be like you then. And he said, what do you mean? You want to be an officer? I said, no, I want to be a German. I want citizenship, whatever you call it. I want it. I want to own land. I want to be able to have a German wife. I want to have German kids with her. And he said, you'd be punished for saying that, because you're not like allowed to. You hear that a lot in the Dark Fleet. You could be punished for that. And I guess he thought about it, and I guess he got through his people, and it was approved. And I was allowed on the German homeworld after that. And it was like for only like 5 days, 6 days.
Any idea where the homeworld is in space?
No, it's very tropical though. It was a beach, and there were palm trees. It looked like a beach on Earth.
Really?
And there were palm trees, yeah. And yeah, I met a woman there, and I was gonna ask her to marry me, and she said yeah. And I remember the XO. When I saw the XO, he said they were gonna make you one of them. The Germans, they're gonna make you one of them. He's like, they've never done that before. And I said, he said, what was it like? He wanted to know what the German world looked like. And I said, you never been there before? He said, no, they're really secretive. And he's like been everywhere. And I thought about it, and I said it was like the 40s. He said, what do you mean? It was like, I said, men wear fedoras and suits, and women wear dresses and pillbox hats. And yeah, it was like the 40s. It looked like the 40s. They had like these conveyor belt kind of sidewalks where slower ones would go into a main one that went really fast. So it was like a form of public transit. So it was like the 40s of like really advanced high-tech public transit, smart glass pads and stuff like that.
Wow, that's interesting.
Did you speak German?
I spoke like broken German, and I heard about implants or something like that. But I remember it was one time there was like a constable. I was with this woman, and we were in a market, and I was trying to talk to the man behind the booth, and I was speaking like broken German, kind of, sort of. I only had a couple of weeks to do like a crash course in it, and I was teaching the first officer guitar, and so in exchange he started giving me German lessons on his free time. And yeah, I was talking to this guy in the market, and these German like constables, like police officers, came up to me and said, like, why don't you speak fluent German? They said to me in like perfect English, because they all know English, because like I said, they're like infiltrators, they're like spies on Earth. So I guess it's like one of the things that they do. They all have to learn English. But yeah, and I showed him the paperwork I had, and he looked at it, and then they let me go. And so yeah, and then eventually I had to go back. We had dinner at the first officer's house. I was pretty good friends with him by this time, and it was like old fashioned. It was like, I remember the kids ate in the kitchen in a separate table. Like they had a small kids table. He had 2 sons, and they ate like in a separate, like in the kitchen, in like a small table, and we were eating at the regular table. And the next day we had to take back off, and we went to it was almost like a space station, like a United Nations kind of thing. And I still wasn't a German citizen yet. but I was like on my way up, and the first officer said, the people who were fighting, the ones who were fighting are going to be here. So if they try to attack the master, he said they won't, but just in case, just be ready. You know, he basically told me. And we went off ship, and we went into this place. It was 2 clear walls, like a clear ceiling, and then the other 2 walls behind us were like, I don't know, 5, 6 stories high, and it was just a bunch of like shops. A lot of trade went on here, a lot of meetings. It seemed like a place where maybe warring factions can go to talk peace and things like that. Like
not this. This wasn't on the German planet.
No. This was like we had to take back off on the ship. We left the German planet, and we had to take back off. And
And then you ended up there. And what was that place?
Yeah, here. And I had only seen like grays and the drones and the reptiles. So I didn't know anything else. And we went to this place, and it was just everything you see on the walls of an Egyptian pyramid was like real. I saw like dog humanoids, cat humanoids. I saw like green people. I saw blue people. I saw most of it was small. Most of it was only like 1.5 feet, and it was like kind of scurrying around the taller ones. And it was like this unspoken rule where like the taller beings walk very slow, so they wouldn't hurt or kick the smaller ones walking around. It was just stuff everywhere. And I remember I saw one of those. It looked like one of the, what they say on the internet, called like an Andromedan, I think is what they call it, with a big blue head, and like it had black eyes, and like people look like swirling blue galaxies. And it had a small mouth and a small nose. And it looked up at me and smiled. It had like a pleasant smile. But the entire time in my head, I was like, you have to remember this. You have to remember this. Because like, they were always telling me I was going to get my mind wiped, and I was just like saying to myself over and over again. And there was a man and a woman came up, and they were wearing like, the blue suits, and they were blonde hair, blue eyed. And the master came up, the head reptile, and the male came up first, and female came up first. It's kind of like how they negotiate. And she kind of was being very nice and talkative and complimentary to him and stuff like that, and saying things like, and they were speaking telepathically, and they're saying things like, she was saying, it was almost like they're talking about, I don't know, cargo or something like that. It was, and they said, she said, you knew the cargo was us, and you took it without permission, and you have to give the cargo back. And he said, surely you must realize that since we trained the cargo and invested so much time and energy into the cargo, then now the cargo rightfully belongs to us.
Meaning you're the cargo?
I was the cargo, but it was like they were talking about me, so I wouldn't know, or they were just talking about me as if like I was a thing or something like that.
Yeah.
That's almost what it seemed like. And the man came up, and he had this smart glass pad, and he showed all the articles that he was infringing on, and he's like, if you don't, return the cargo right now, it'll be considered an act of war. And so Reptile read like all of it. Took a little while, and then he just threw his hands up in the air and walked away. And then the woman came up to me, and she said out loud to me, "You're coming with us now." And I looked at the first officer, and he nodded his head, and I said, "Can I get my things?" And she said, "Yes, hurry." And I grabbed my guitar and all my music stuff, and I went back out, and I was with them now. And because like I said, I wasn't a German yet, so I didn't have a lot of rights, and I just had to do what I was told still. And you had tech in your body too, where it was almost like a board kind of thing, where you really didn't have kind of your own personality, your own self. If you were in your room and I was playing guitar, if I was sleeping, it would leave you alone. But sometimes you'd get up in the middle of the night and just go do something, and you wouldn't even know like what you were doing. You were just kind of being led around. But if you were like on your free time, it kind of let you go. But as soon as like you were told to do something, it enforced it and made sure you did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's probably what they're trying to put in us right now with these vaccines.
With the magnets.
Yeah.
But and I went with them, and it looked like a polished, like one of those Billy Meyer like flying saucers. It was like a polished metal flying saucer.
And what group of race, or what race was this?
This was the Taigetans.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going with them now, and I got put with them, and he told me to go in the back of the ship. I remember this part, and I sat in the back, and it looked like poured metal, like it was just all one thing. It was like no seams or rivets or folds or anything. It looked like somebody had poured it into a mold. there was like a long bench seat going all the way around it. And they came out after a while, and they were talking to each other. And she said something like, he looks disturbed, and he said, wouldn't you be if you had to live with them? And I looked over at them as soon as they said that. And they both like looked at me, and they do this weird thing where if something catches their attention, their eyes get really big. They looked at me and they like cocked their heads like towards each other, like same time, like this eyes big, and they cocked their head. And I looked away, and it freaked me out. And the man, like, he got up and he kneeled down in front of me, and he said, "Can you hear what I'm saying to you telepathically?" And I said, "Yes." And he said it again. Like I said, it's the thing, they want you to make like a physical gesture the first time you're making contact with them. And so I nodded my head and I said yes. And then they focused in on you can do this thing where you can focus in on an individual more and have like a private conversation. And they had a private conversation. And that happened. And I'm not droning on too long, am I? About
No, absolutely not. No. So, but I guess they were surprised that you had that ability to speak.
Yeah, they didn't know I could do it. Yeah, they just looked at me. As soon as I looked over at them, they knew right away that I could hear what they were saying. And yeah, and then I wound up, and then I was in Solar Warden. It turned out it was like a joint task force between like Earth and the Taigetans above Earth, and that's primarily what I did. I was almost like space customs at first. And then it went from that to like we were shooting down the craft of the Greys and the reptiles. And I remember Robert told me, he said in the future, if you start seeing activity like this is when I'm about to leave the Navy, if you see things like, you know, like meteorites with sparkles behind it, gold sparks coming off of it or something like that, and you see like several streaks all coming down with gold sparks coming, and they say it's like an anomaly like northern lights, or they say it's meteorites. He said that's more than likely like us like shooting down their ships because they're scared. He kept on saying that they're scared. You know, I said, why are they lighting the fires? They're scared. Why are they trying to escape? They're scared. You know, why are they letting all these prisoners go? They're scared. He just kept on saying that. Yeah. So they're all just trying to leave right now. Like you're seeing a lot of this crazy stuff going on with all that, with all these meteorites everywhere and stuff. And he told me that more than likely it's their ships being shot down because they're just trying to leave this world. But yeah, that's primarily what I did.
So then you were with them for how long?
The rest of the time. Yeah. Okay. I went back to their home world. I don't remember names. He told me when I was getting out, and I said, what was their names? Because I didn't remember any names, and I still don't remember any names except the ones he gave me. And he said that I said I remember a woman. I remember leaving and like hugging people. And I said I remember because I can remember the beginning and I can remember the end, which is weird, but I couldn't remember what was in between. You know what I mean? At the time, I had fairly good memory at the beginning and the end, but not in between. And I said, I remember I was hugging a really tall woman and I kissed her or something like that with silver hair, and she was sitting down. He said, that was Mother, he called her. And I said, well, he said, you had a son with her. I said, I had sons. He said, you have dozens of sons and hundreds of daughters. And I was like, what? And he said, well, the one you loved the most was named Svaru. And so Svaru. I wrote that. Yeah.
That's who Gozia is in communication with.
Doesn't look the same though. I'd seen the picture. People emailed me pictures of her. The redhead with the blue eyes. She was blonde with blue eyes, and their eyes are bigger than ours. This woman looked more human. They don't look alien, but they do have like their eyes are a fifth larger than ours, I would say. And I think I remember she brushed her hair back, and her forehead was a bit taller, I would say, than so maybe their heads and their brains are a little bit larger than ours. So her forehead was a little bit taller, and her eyes were a little bit bigger than a regular human woman, I would say. But yeah, her name was, that's what he said.
Do you think that's the same Svaru that Gozia that is talking to?
Well, she said there's no king, but there is and he told me he used to play guitar for the king, and I said, what's the king's name? And he said Plachacha.
Plachacha.
And I watched that Cosmic Agency for a little while, but then whenever they said there's no king, then I stopped watching it. I don't know. Just did. Yeah.
So I'm not even familiar with what you're referring to.
So Gozia, she has a pretty big YouTube channel. She's from Spain, I think. She has like an accent. Really dark, like kind of black hair. She doesn't channel, but she says she gets she's somehow in communication with a Pleiadian, a Tagetan, she specifically says, named Swaru, and she relays the information on her YouTube channel.
She might just have the details of the appearance wrong, but it could be the same.
It could be. I thought about that too, and I also thought about, is it a common name? You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I was shuffling around one of those $10,000 like mahogany desks, like the captain of the Navy. I was like, he's like, what are you looking for? I said, paper and a pen, and he gave me like a Post-it note, and I grabbed the pen, and I was like writing all the names down. And I remember I studied them for like weeks after I got out into Virginia to process out, but I couldn't do it anymore. It was just driving me crazy. But I don't remember. Huh? Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to ask, when you're on these craft and on these planets, what's the breathing situation like as far as oxygen?
Mars, you can breathe, but you can't run or something like, you know what I mean? It's only about, I think, 20% of the oxygen as there is on Earth. So you can walk and you can sit, but if you try to run, it'd be like trying to run on the Himalayan mountains. You'd like pass out. It wouldn't kill you, but you would pass out.
Yeah.
And there's like desert shrubs and stuff like that. You see like shrubs everywhere.
And then as far as like on the craft, they just have their own atmosphere, or what's that like?
Yeah, it just felt like being like here, like in this room. It was just, everything, of course, different. Even the memories themselves different, just because of fifth density. I remember the ship itself had like an artificial density, and it was way too strong for me or something. Because when I went to their home world, it felt so much calmer and better, and it just felt way too strong for me on the ship.
And what was the home world like?
It was like a temperate climate, except for they could regulate it. It looked like the Rockies or like Norway or something, I guess you would say. It was like granite mountains, lots of like pine trees, lots of rivers, lots of lakes, stuff like that. But they regulated the temperature, so they didn't have like winter, they didn't have snow or whatever. Whenever they needed rain, they could make it rain. It was just a completely regulated planet. They knew how to regulate everything on.
Interesting.
So it seems to me when you're describing this stuff, it's like not too dissimilar from Earth, like any of these planets.
It's all relative, I guess. If they can breathe our atmosphere, then we must be able to breathe their atmosphere. It must be similar. Everything has to be kind of similar.
Yeah, it's just, but whenever some of us think of alien planets, we think of something that we just wouldn't even recognize, colors.
And I'm sure those exist as well,
but just probably not within the program you were in. Yeah.
They ate a lot of fish. I remember that.
And what were you actually doing? Like, you were living with them, but what were you doing? Were you working? Like, what was your purpose?
Well, on the ship, it was pilot. I was a pilot, and the first guy I knew was, he was like the navigator, and the woman, Swaru, she was like the science officer. And she would like detect anomalies and stuff like that. If anything was like that, anything happened in space, that she was a head scientist. And like I said, there was the ranking system. All I can remember is the ranking system, and it was a leader, and leader was a man and a woman. It was a warrior caste man and a woman, and they were both leader. And then there was mother, and she was like the midwife, and she was like the school teacher, like the head school teacher. And then there was elder, and they were married. Mother and elder were together, and he was like the elder. He handled kind of like legalities or arguments. If anything like that happened, he would be the one to handle that. He was like the judge almost.
Now, were they like, compared to humans, like us here in 3D, how advanced as far as their behavior? Was there like a duality as far as a good and evil on their planet, or is everything pretty peaceful?
Everything is peaceful. I remember it was more of like a spiritual element, I guess you would say, especially with the women. I remember being with like the men, and like we were contemplating like something that was going to war with the reptiles. And if you're with like 3 or 4 different people, or like 2 or 3 different people, you're more of an individual. But if you're with like 5 or 6, like a group more, you're kind of just almost, it's bizarre. You're like swimming in each other's thoughts. You kind of almost forget like what you're thinking and what they're thinking, especially if they're like, they're contemplating about what to do next in like a situation or something. they even tell you that when you get up to like fifth density, is like your individualism, it becomes less, like you become more of a collective. And you really felt that amongst them. They were like much, much more of a collective.
So there's no like secrets. There's no privacy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like telepaths, you can't like keep anything to yourself. Yeah. And that's how I wound up like becoming, going with, I had a child with Faru and I had two, I believe. But yeah, it was because of that, because I just couldn't, keep anything to myself or anything like that. And that's pretty much how it happened.
What do you mean? She knew that she knew that you liked her?
Yeah. Like anything I thought, she immediately knew. Yeah. There's no secrets. It's weird. Yeah. You don't have no privacy or anything like that amongst them. And that's just how I wound up, being with her. And, she told me when she was going to have the baby, she would change. And I really didn't know like what she meant. And I thought her behavior would change or something, but she became very, the baby was it, that was it. She was with the baby all the time. That, if the baby was hungry at 8, she slept with the baby. That was when she ate, was with the baby. She never talked to me. I thought something was wrong with her. I didn't know what was happening. And after 4 months of this, I tried holding the baby, and she punched me in the face and knocked me down to the ground. And
Wow.
yeah, they're strong. And I remember I told the co-pilot about it, and he said, you need to talk to Elder. So I talked to Elder about it. And he told me that like, that's like, they go through a bonding process, like a 10-month bonding process. He said, you're lucky. He's like, she could have bitten your face. I said, it's something common that they do. And he said, yeah, they try to touch their babies when they're like that. And he told me that another woman was available. She just arrived at the ship. She was free. And I was just like, well, I didn't know what to do. I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do that. And he's like, well, that's just the way it is. That's like how he put it. And I was with her then. And because what happens is the men rut for about 2 weeks, about every 6 months. They go into like almost like go into heat, like the male equivalent of going into heat. And it's like they have to be with like a woman. And if the women are bonding like that, then they have to be with somebody else. So it's almost like, I don't know. What do you call that? Like polygamy? Or,
yeah.
It's like they're biologically hardwired to be that way.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
It's just the most fascinating part to me is that when we think of a Pleiadian or a Taigetan, if they showed up or manifested in your room, we put them above us. It's just like somebody like this benevolent,
like an angel almost.
Angelic. Yeah, exactly.
Kind of.
And then you hear stories like this that you never even consider. You don't consider any of that type of stuff whenever I hear the Pleiadians mentioned, right? I just think of it as like a Pleiadian guide that's here to help me. I don't think about them having sex or
they're basically just like us.
Yeah.
They're in fifth density.
Yeah, it's just been in a totally different way of life.
Yeah.
It's the higher density. Yeah, it's definitely the higher density is what it is. Yeah, like I said, they appear to be like God-like to us or whatever. But once you get pushed up to that higher density, it's just all the same to you.
You're on the same level. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I mean that happened, and I don't know. I just had a life, and I went to their home world, and I met the commanding officer, and the XO kept up with me, but the commanding officer of my base was there too, though, the CO, the skipper, and he was there too. So they were both kind of keeping tabs on me on this home world. They were like visitors, tourists kind of thing. And I don't know. I just started doing things. I wanted to show them that we were worth helping and saving. I wanted to let them know that we were more than just, I don't know, something. So I started teaching them about us. I started teaching their kids how to play music and stuff like that. And they were really amazed by music. First time I ever played music in front of them before, they just stared at me with like their eyes wide open. They had they had like a form of music, but just the whole harmony and the melody of our music and stuff like that. All ETs like love it. They fascinate them like more than like I can explain. But they really enjoy that. And and I just became a teacher after a while. Most of them, when they're on their home world, they're fine with just studying all day, and it was boring to me. they would be on their smart glass pads and studying and stuff like that. And that's all they would do. And I started
kind of like us on our phones all day.
yeah. That's all they would do, and it was boring. And I started having stuff made for me. That they have like almost like printers, like 3D printers. They can make things, but they're really advanced. And I started doing things like bow fishing because there was so much fish. I was looking up stuff to do, you know, from Earth. Like, what do people on Earth like to do? And I was looking up all these hobbies. I started just regular pole fishing because there's fish everywhere. And I started teaching the others how to do it. And then I thought, well, they enjoy that, so I'll try teaching them some other stuff. And I started teaching them baseball, and they liked that. And we started having baseball games and stuff like that. And I remember I started smoking fish, and I would wrap it in leaves so that way they could just eat it and they could just throw the leaf away and it wouldn't be like a litter or anything like that. So I started smoking fish, and I would have I had a bunch of kids by this time, and I would have them like go up and down like the stands. We had stands made and stands built. We had like a little baseball field, and they would give them smoked fish, and while they were watching the game, and then listen, man.
Wow,
I would,
that's so cool. Playing baseball on the
Well, I want them to let them know like we were worth more than just whatever they thought they were. You know what I mean? They were amazed by the music, so I thought like, well, if I get them more engrossed into our culture, you know, they'll think we're worth saving. You know what I mean? Rather than just being, I don't know, some sort of alien beings.
The dogs are very prevalent on this episode.
Yeah, sorry.
Hey guys.
Hopefully the listeners don't mind too much. Sorry guys, just part of life, right?
Yeah. It's part of being
You know this isn't scripted or staged. Dogs barking.
But yeah, I mean, and eventually I started teaching them like football and stuff. Like we started playing football, and it was only the Warrior cast that would play. And we had like a stand for that. And it was only one game, and we played a game, and it was just like a little scrimmage we had. And then I remember the XO, he said, it's time to go. And he said that to me. And he was always there. And I said, go where? He said, go home. And I said, well, I'm not going. Like, I didn't want to go. I said, I'm not going home. And they I don't know. I just had this attitude of not going, and well, before this, I had to explain. They made me. They were doing something. They wanted to try to keep me alive, but they also wanted to, because the Aquino would kill me no matter what. But they wanted to try to keep me alive, and they also wanted to try to, I guess, start a war kind of thing, like initiate a war, but have allies on their side. And it's weird with ETs. It's just like with us. They follow contracts. They follow like rules of war and engagement because you know your word is your bond, and they don't want to break that bond. And they have a strong sense of that. And so they made me their king for like 4 months, and it was just for the fact they wanted my genetics. I remember I had 200 princesses at the time and the queen. I remember I asked the queen, I was like, why do I have to sleep with so many women? And she said, to ensure the survival of your lineage. And I remember the XO said, they liked me so much because I could speak to the children, and they couldn't do that. And the kids spoke a type of pig Latin where it was almost like baby talk, where it was like, but a few words here and there was like I don't know, like, and then we went to the, and then over to the, and it was just like mumbling, and the adults couldn't understand it, but the kids would outgrow it at around like 6 years old, where they wouldn't be able to do it anymore. But it was like when they were young children, they could just speak like this pig Latin, and none of the adults could do it, but I could talk to them, and they were like more amazed by that than anything else about me. And I remember the XO told me that less than like 2% of the population of Earth is genetically compatible enough to have kids with them. And so that was something else. And yeah, so eventually the XO, he said that I have to, you have to go home. And then I told, I remember Sfaru said, they're going to try to get you into a chair. Don't do it. Don't go into the chair. And I said, what do you mean? I said, don't go into the chair. She goes, well, the first time you have no choice. You're going to have to go. But the second time you'll have a choice. Don't go in. And I remember I talked to leader, his son and my daughter got married. And I guess she was still bonding with the baby, I thought. But I think they were like holding it from me or hiding it from me or something like that. And I remember I saw his leader's son, and he kind of like pointed over to me, and I saw my daughter, and she was like wearing like a veil, like a white veil, like a white dress, and she had the baby with her, and she let me hold him. So she was like through her bonding, and I kind of looked at her like, you know, why did you do this? Like, why did you make me wait? I could have like spent, you know, weeks with my grandson instead of, you know, just now just seeing it. And she looked up at me and she said, remember. And then I looked down at my grandson. I said, I'll remember. And I think that's why I remember so much. Like I said, they could do things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, some of you guys have heard me talk about my friend Larry, who claimed he was recruited to go to Mars, and he actually tried to get me to go with him. That's one thing he told me that I've never shared, is he told me that they told him that he was going to have multiple wives. And I didn't, that was the most insane part of it all, to where I almost didn't believe him. And then now hearing you tell the story, as far as, you know, I don't know what they had in store for him, but when I hear you tell the story now, it makes me wonder if there was actually something to what he was telling me. I don't know. Sounds
yeah. Insane. And something else before this, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around. It's only the second time I've told the story, but we actually went like on a mission. I wanted to be going with a leader's wife. I wound up she became my queen eventually, like my main wife. They call me your queen. When you have more than one wife, they call your main wife your queen. And we went actually into the same exact base that I came out of, because I was, you know, asking the king to help us to get you know, these kids out of these underground bases. Like, you know, why don't you help us? I knew about it was happening, and so eventually we were given permission to do it. I had 2 warrior casts, and I had her, and she refused to wear any kind of suit or armor or anything like that. And I asked her why. She said she just wouldn't do it. She would only wear that regular blue suit. And there was a man and a woman I saw, and I saw the cages, and that really angered me. I remember that. And we heard people talking, and we went to the back corner, and it was very dark because it was a cave. And they were talking about like what we should do, who should we take out first, and stuff like that. And I rolled they had like these concussion grenades that can just wound, and I rolled one at him, and it just knocked him down. And I pushed the man over, like I kicked him over on his back, and he was laughing. And I said, "You'd do this to my children, wouldn't you?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Sorry." I said, and I pointed back at them, and I said, "You do this to their children too, wouldn't you?" And he laughed, and he said, "Yes." And I said, so then I just shot him.
You didn't say anything. You just shot him.
Yeah. And then the woman was trying to get away, and she crawled back.
Now, where was this taking place? So you were on their home planet?
I was back in Nuki. I was back in Saint Mawgan at the same exact base. They brought me there. This is like the way, like warfare, ET warfare, it's like a lot of like cat and mouse kind of time travel. They use time travel a lot for their warfare. It's just the way it works. But they yeah, and she said open the cage. God, sorry about that. She said open the cages, and we opened them all up, and somehow she just like held her arms out, and all the kids just came to her. Like all these feral kids that have like never seen anybody or anything like that before, they all just came to her, and they held onto her legs and her arms and stuff like that. And I never saw anything like that. And even if they couldn't hold her, they held onto each other. And I'm just petting my dog. But
so they took you off their home planet to come back to Earth for this mission.
To save these kids, yeah.
And then what happens? What happened to the children after that?
Well, yeah, we got more, and the whole time, like, they were yelling, like, you know, it's the king, it's the king. The people were yelling that, and I didn't know at the time, like, why they were doing that. And we brought them all back to their home world, and they went through like a type of healing. They needed to be. That's what they call it. You need healing. They needed healing, and we brought them back for that. And I didn't really keep track of the kids after that. That wasn't up to me, but yeah. So then now I'm back, and I gotta go home, and they eventually bring me back home. And I remember I was very I was yelling, you know, I was punching the wall, and I was yelling, please don't take my babies from me and stuff like that. And I was upset, and I broke my hand. And I remember we got out of the ship, we landed on the moon, we got into a portal. We were back in the underground base. You know, you take a portal, you land on the moon, you take a portal back to the underground base. And they were that same first class with the mustache was there, and he said real condescendingly, "Oh, look at that, you broke your hand." And I remember the XO said, "Leave him alone. If I had 10 men like him, this war would be over by now." And I remember they shaved my head with just some clippers, and then shaved my beard. I had a beard with, you know, with just the guard, with no guard or anything like that. And they put me back in the density chamber, and they brought me back down to 3rd density. And then I remember being like drugged. And like one thing I remember when I woke up, when my uniform was on the ground and stuff like that, was the tops of my feet were dirty. Like I was drugged, you know, and I was being drugged on the top of my feet. And my hair was burnt and singed. And my chest hair was burnt and singed. And I had like a real thick beard. And I couldn't figure out why. Like stubble, I had thick stubble the next day. And my picking nails were long. I couldn't figure that out either, because I hadn't played in a while. And
so you just remember when you woke back up. You're talking about when you woke back up. So all the stuff was different about you. Your nails were longer, but you didn't know why.
I couldn't figure out why. Yeah. And my hair, I just got like a regular haircut, but it looked like a little kid cut my hair with just a guard, you know, with just a blade guard and stuff like that. And I remember them, you know, shaving all my hair off like that and everything else. And I was being drugged, and that's when they drugged me to those cages I told you about, where the little kids were in them. And she said, "I'm tired." Let's put them down. And then they drugged me into the room, and then I remember they tied me to like a rack, like a torture rack. It's a straight up regular old torture rack, and I was naked. And I saw like a red hooded figure like come by, and he gouged my eyes out right away. And then they threw me in the healing tank. They wanted to be really fast, no med bed or anything like that. They just threw me into a healing tank right away. And then disemboweled me. And I remember like he came by and he pricked open my stomach, and they came out my intestines, and he strangled me with them. And then he put me in a healing tank, and they had to send a drone in to like put my guts back in properly, because they weren't growing in properly, and he kept on pushing it, and it was sticking, and like the skin was healing over it, and it really hurt. And he was just adjusting it and doing it. And I was trying to push him away, and the goon, the big guy, just grabbed my arms and put them over my head while I was like pushing it back in as my skin healed over. And I remember like all of a sudden this red hooded figure came up to me, and it looked like a black snake, like a black racer, but like coming out of like a human torso. And he said like, "Do you remember me, Daryl?" or something like that. "Do you remember me?" And I was like, "What?" And I didn't know what was happening. I still had like amnesia from the he gives you like temporary amnesia going into 3rd density. And
why would they torture you like this? Like, what's the purpose of that before bringing you back? So you don't remember, or what?
Well, no. When I came back for poking that reptile in the eye,
Oh, okay.
It's punishment.
Because if a human having the nerve to dare touch like a reptile, they kind of have they see us as just the lowest like form of scum like in the universe. They see us as nothing. And for doing that, for being scared and not knowing what was happening and poking that one in the eye, they were just going to basically torture me to death just for that alone. And all of a sudden, yeah, like this black racer kind of figure came up. It looked like a snake coming out of like a humanoid body, and he had a red hood on, a red cloak. They said, "You remember me?" And I said, "No." I was like confused. And then it kind of did this thing where it kind of walked back a little bit, and then Aquino was right there. And I think that's like where my theory of like the whole David Icke thing with reptilian shapeshifters and stuff. It's almost like a trick, like he was blending two images together while he kind of like waddled into the back into the shadows while Aquino kind of stepped forward, and it made it kind of look like it was happening like in a like melding together. But then I just looked past like the body of Aquino, the avatar, the meat puppet, whatever you want to call it. And I looked at the reptile. I said, "Nice trick." And it came out of the shadows, and I said, "Yes, well, it works on most." And he yelled at Aquino to sit down, and it just sat down. And yeah, man, I mean, they tortured me for 2 days. I missed Saturday. I left on Friday. I missed Saturday. I didn't wake up till Sunday. So, an entire and plus, whenever I first got into the program, I remember that first class said, "Just sign the papers because you're already back there." When I was contemplating on whether or not to sign the papers to join the 20-year back, he said, "You're already back there. You already did it. So you're already back there. So just sign the papers." So I guess you come back a little bit earlier so they can,
What's the purpose of having you sign the papers if they're just going to do what they want anyway?
Like I said, well, contracts are big with ETs. It's like, no, I don't know. I don't understand it either, but a deal's a deal type of thing. They have that mentality. A deal's a deal. I don't know.
So then you woke up from all this, and the guy's like, "You made it. 20 years is a long time."
Yeah. And I woke up from being messed up, and he like I said, he put me over like a burning like kind of like cauldron type thing and like burned me alive, and that's why I had the singed hair and like singed chest hair and all this other stuff. And that happened, and then I talked to the XO and before getting out, and he just kept on saying that you need to go back to the chair. He's like, "You can't do this. This is gonna, your life's gonna be really hard. And if you don't get your mind erased, you don't get your mind wiped."
I'm surprised he gave you an option.
Well, and another thing was I told him about the kid. I said I saw the kids. I remember that. I remember seeing the kids, and I said, "How can you?" He said, "They know I won't do it, but I have to put up with it." And I said, "Why?" He said, "They'll hurt my daughter." And I said, "How do you live with yourself?" I got so angry. I just remembered seeing that. And I said, "How do you live with yourself?" I said, "Don't you ever think about killing yourself?" He said, "Every night." I said, "How would you do it?" He said, 45 in the mouth. And and he told me about all this stuff, and I refused to go. And then like that Friday, they did the same thing with like the 5G, and it was like 10 o'clock at night. And I said, I just heard a voice come into my room all of a sudden. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and I heard a voice, and it was him. And he said, "Daryl, you have to go back into the chair." He's like, "Everything we talked about before, I'll do it." He's talking about all the ways he could improve me, make me stronger, make me faster, do all this stuff, like, using med beds and stuff like that. And he said, "Everything we talked about before, I'll do it, but, you have to come back. You have to come back in the chair." And I said, I sat up in bed, and he had to partake in part of the torture when I was tortured. It was just something they made him do. And I don't know, cut me open and
wow,
and cut open, my whole side. And they cut like the top part of my stomach open. And he was forced to him and the CO did it. But the CO, when he did it, he seemed like he kind of enjoyed it because he didn't like me. He said, "Not so high and mighty now, are you?" And he did it. And then the XO did it. And then Aquino reached inside my stomach, and with his sharp nails, he scratched it. And I guess because there's so many nerves in your stomach, it made me kind of thrash back and forth. And it was something they commonly do. It was almost like I was resisting, and then it just became almost like a knee-jerk reaction where it was just like he was scratching the inside of my stomach over and over again. And it made me thrash back and forth. And
Well, no wonder he wanted you to sit in that chair because he probably wasn't proud of doing that.
Yeah. That was another thing I didn't remember at the time when he was talking to me in the office. And he said, you're going to remember, like, because he was looking down my timeline too, as well, which is like something that fifth density can do. It's almost like telling your future. He could tell that I was going to be able to remember eventually. And I said, I remember what you did to me now. And I told him, and he said, I'm sorry, they hurt my daughter. And I said, I don't trust you. And he's like, well, they made me do that so you wouldn't trust me and stuff like that. I said, I'm not going back. And I just threw the covers over my head. And he just kept on going for like 30 seconds. He just kept on pleading with me. And I just threw my covers off. And I said, may God let you die with blood in your mouth over the 45 thing. I just wanted him away from me. And he said, please don't say that. And I said it again. And he talked to me for like another 30 seconds. I threw the pillow over my head and he kept on talking to me. And then he just eventually went away. And I left England and I got processed out in Virginia. And now I'm here today.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
And how old are you now?
I'm 43 right now.
43?
Yeah.
Wow. That I can't even imagine what it's like to live with those memories, honestly. And from what you understand, you might even be getting more memories back.
Yeah, because I'm still not out of it yet. I remember I said I still have a year left when they came to get me. I said I still have a year left because I guess maybe they took me a year early because they thought I'd run or something, because the whole time he was always talking about if I ever joked or anything like that, well, maybe I should just stay here. He said, Daryl, don't say that. They'll hurt my daughter. Don't make my daughter pay for what you did. He would say things like that all the time. And I guess that's what they do, the reptiles. If you don't do what they tell you to, they'll hurt your family.
Wow. So as far as your like day-to-day life now, when you do get a memory back, what is that like? Is it just like does it randomly happen? Does it happen during dream state? Does something trigger it?
It's almost like I had a dream about something, and then I'm in the morning and I'm making my morning coffee, and it's almost like, oh yeah, and then that happened. And then I'm making like my breakfast and, oh yeah, then that happened. So yeah, it is like a morning thing. It's almost like I just had a dream and then it's just like, and then, the events start happening. And usually when you do create memories, at least when I do, it's maybe something big in your life, like a new accomplishment. So it can maybe take days, you know what I mean? It can maybe take several days as it's happening. But yeah, it happens in real time, but sometimes it'll take days to happen, to recover like an entire memory.
Wow. Kind of reminds me of stuff that I go through. I'm serious. I have memories or experiences that I can't explain sometimes, and it happens exactly like that. I'll be like just in the middle of the day, I'm like, oh yeah, this happened, So yeah, this has been incredible, man. If there's anything else you feel like you want to share before we start wrapping this up.
Well, I did this the last one, but this is kind of like why I'm doing this. So I'm just going to say it again. Like I said, Robert told me that when you get your Eagles, that you know about the kids in the underground bases, and you know about, the secret space program. You know about these things. So, I mean, if you have relatives, if you have a father or something like that, unless this guy was fibbing to me, they know. And I'm just saying, I didn't sign anything. And, I know I signed papers, whatever, the non-disclosure, but I wasn't told to do this, and I wasn't given permission to do this or anything else. But I also didn't sign up, to be a part of a base that would do that to kids, that would do that. I mean, I think that's just, whatever I sign doesn't matter to me, is basically what I'm saying because of that. And I also didn't, sign up to be tortured by who I thought were my own people, Army, Navy, Royal Air Force, British Army, I also didn't sign up for that. So, I mean, all I'm trying to say is I'm doing things like this, as far as I'm concerned, is like a confession of what I know. And, I mean, if you're a captain or a colonel or an admiral or a general, And as far as I've been told, you know about this stuff. And I think the best thing you can do is just come forward and let others know and just confess, just die with a clean conscience. Don't just die like knowing all this stuff, this horrible things that happen. And that's just, I know people just can't accept this. I never would have accepted this either, as far as just how cruel other beings, humans, whatever you want to call it, can be. But I mean, people are this cruel, and these things happen, and this is real. And I experienced this, and this happened to me.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell everybody that if you know this, I don't know, just
well,
don't die unclean, die clean. That's all I got to say.
It'll help.
Absolutely.
It would help with the confusion, because there's skeptics that won't believe a word that you said, because they can't even get past the technology part of it, of even being capable of doing something like this. And there's a lot of people, even within this movement, within this community, who don't believe in this stuff still. It's very, it's like uncharted territory for a lot of people. So if more people, credible people, come forward and share this stuff, I think it will help. It will help kind of give some validity to these guys who, like yourself, who are, putting their neck out there, putting your life on the line. You don't know what consequences can come from sharing all this stuff, and you're willing to do it. And that's admirable. So, and I think we're going through a time right now where we are being protected somehow, some way. I don't think it's like the whistleblowers in, like, let's say the early 2000s, or when people will come forward, you almost certainly hear about somebody getting killed, I don't know if that's the case so much anymore. So I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't have come forward unless I thought that, I want to live.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have come forward unless I thought it was the right time. I think it's the right time now. I think things are happening. I think a lot of these things we were talking about before are going to happen this year. I think we're going to see more and more. I think it's going to start snowballing. I think they're going to get. They're still denying it. They're still denying it. And like Robert told me, they're going to get to a point where they just can't deny it anymore. And it's going to happen. I think that's what's happening right now.
It is happening.
It is what's happening.
Because I don't watch the news, but the times that I catch it on, even at a restaurant or in the airport, like, I mean, come on, like, I don't think people believe this stuff anymore. Like, it's you have to be able to see right through it. Like, their game is coming to an end, and like you said, they're not going to be able to keep suppressing it. They're going to try. I love your analogy with the chess game, right? They both know the outcome, but the loser's just going to make it as hard as possible.
All they can do is delay.
Yeah.
That's what they've been doing, but they can't stop it. Yeah.
It's
inevitable.
Wow. Well, this has been incredible, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
And thank you
for doing what you're doing. I'm sure you'll be doing more interviews as more memories come back. You said people have already been reaching out to you.
So. Oh yeah. I'm taking a break. I've done two almost in a row right now. And it is almost like psychotherapy. It's hard. I have dreams and stuff. So it's hard to talk about. I'm going to take like a week or two off, and then maybe if somebody else wants to do it, I'll be willing to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for. You're gonna get a million emails. No, you know what you can handle and what you can't. Just take care of yourself first and foremost. Thank you. Thank your dogs for coming on the show tonight. Hi guys. Do you have? I mean, I don't know if you have any. Do you want to put out your contact information or not? Yeah,
sure. I have like a email I can give you guys. It's one I don't really use, so.
So you're not going to check it? You can have it.
Well, you can email me. It's not going
to. I'll check it, but it's not like my normal one. It's not like my normal email. It's oh geez, I hardly use it. Sorry about that. It's the Nimitz one.
Oh, okay.
Nimitz SSP.
Nimitz
at gmail.com. Yeah.
NIMITZ SSP at gmail.com.
Yes, like the USS Nimitz. That was the name of the ship I was on too, by the way. That was something else he told me that I had to write down. I remember that because I said, isn't it bad luck to name two ships after one name? Because, Navy's kind of superstitious, and he just kind of shrugged his shoulders. But yeah, the ship I was on was called the Nimitz.
Really? The Dark Fleet ship?
I'm sorry?
The Dark Fleet ship?
No, the Solar Warden, 4-kilometer long starship was called the Nimitz. Yeah.
Did we get to that part of the story?
We didn't, but I was kind of,
I
was kind of folding it down. Yeah, kind of compacting it. Yeah.
Sure. And well, when you were on that ship, just for my own curiosity, were you with Dark Fleet on that ship, or was that with
Solar Warden?
That was Solar. No, sorry.
That was Solar Warden. And Solar Warden is. It may have been owned or whatever by black hats or things I heard, but it's when I was on it, we were like shooting down grays and reptiles. I remember that.
Really?
So I mean, it seemed like it came under more Taigetan control when I was on it. It became more of like a joint task force and became less of just like a corporation.
Really?
If that gives anybody hope out there. I mean, I think it's gonna. I mean, I have high hopes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And then,
Solar Warden is Navy, right? So that's
Solar Warden is Navy, yeah.
Because apparently
but it was like owned by Lockheed Martin and a bunch of those guys.
What we've heard is the White Hats or the Alliance are like the Navy is more under their control, and like the Air Force is more under the Cabal control.
Air Force
supposedly.
Air Force is directly tied to the Stars Academy.
Yeah, which explains a lot.
Yeah,
actually.
Which have ties to the Rockefellers and
which is the Cabal. Yeah. Or the deep state, whatever you want to call them.
So you were on a 4-kilometer ship with Solar Warden for how many years then?
Well, on and off, that was about. She said the rest of the time I was there, so that was about 17 years. Because, like I said, they got me back a year early, so I think I thought it was going to run or something.
That makes a lot more sense because I was wondering how long you spent on that home planet, and well,
it was back and forth, yeah.
It didn't make sense. I was going to ask you that question, like, because your testimony is so different from other guys. If you just went and lived on another home planet, why would they recruit you if that's all you were going to do? But it makes sense now that you were part of that as well. Okay.
And I remember whenever Robert came one time and he was age regressed and his hair was almost solid black. And I was there for probably almost 10 years for a while at one time. And he looked at me and I said, "Sir, you look so much younger. Your hair's dark." He looked at me, he said, "You haven't aged a bit." So that's one of the things he told me whenever before I left the Navy is you age just like them. And he said that he told me that they lived 3,000 years. That was another thing I get.
Wow.
I mean, you age just like them.
Time.
He said, you look the way you do right now when you left. I was 27. He said, "You look just like you do right now."
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I believe that if you look at our ancient writings, even the Bible, like how the lifespan of these people,
1,000 years.
Yeah, clearly is.
And I asked him, like, "Am I going to age like that in the future?" He said, "No." I said, "Why not?" And he said they poison our water, they poison our air, they poison our food. They poison us like constantly just to cause us to age prematurely. Like everything all these poisons, injections,
vaccines.
Yeah, all this stuff is just to make you live shorter lives.
Said the word.
Yeah, we're supposed to live a lot longer than we are.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I believe that.
Well, we've been genetically altered, I've heard, to live not as long.
Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah, well,
but with the ascension, or whatever you want to call it, that is all changing, I believe.
Something you told me. I know we were going to wrap this up, but this is actually a question I wanted to ask you, based on what I heard you tell James, as far as they put a tech on you to make you age rapidly, like a 5-year-old to a 20-year-old in like a matter of months. Did I misunderstand that?
When they hit puberty around 11 years old, and it's a way to bypass puberty. They let them live like normal childhoods, the Taigetans. But then once they get to be 11, they're considered like adults, and then they put tech in them. And the females, they became adults in about 4 or 5 months, and the men become adults, fully grown adults in about 9-10 months. So like with the women, it's about 20 years old they stop, and with the men, it's about 27. So it's about the same as us. Like their peak, they stop they stop aging at their peak, which is about 20 for women and about 27 for men.
So when they're 2,000 years old, they still look like they're 27.
Yeah, around 2000 is whenever they start growing again. That's something else I forgot to say, that their bones begin to grow again. and they'll get very tall. Like I remember Elder, even Mother was about 7 feet tall, and she was a woman. And Elder was about 14.5 feet tall. He was very old. And then they lived to about 3,000 years. Yeah, but then they also have age regression as well, so they can live longer than that.
I wonder how many of the elites on this planet and actors, even celebrities, are age regressing. Or
that was another thing he told me. He said, I said, well, why do they have to do the adrenochrome? He said it helps them live longer and it helps them, they get high. And he talked about how the withdrawal was so strong it can actually kill you. And I said, well, why don't they just get age regressed like us? He said they're not considered important enough. And I said, well, I kind of like laughed. I said, we're more important than them. He said, yes.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's why they do the adrenochrome and stuff. Is a big part of it is to live longer, because it's just like I said, once they hit puberty, that they kill them. So because they don't have as many stem cells, the kids, and they use this for. So that's what they want more than anything else is the stem cells, and they try to get their blood type so they can inject it. It's better that way, but it's so rare that you can't always get your blood type. So then they'll just drink it, but they try to inject it.
Wow. I know the movie Jupiter Ascending is kind of like they don't use the word adrenochrome, but they have another I forgot what word they even use for it, but they explain how it's harvested from humans, and it's like the most sought after thing in the galaxy, and it's traded from planet to planet, and that's like the whole basis of that movie. And there's a lot of disclosure in that movie as far as the adrenochrome
and the reptilians.
Yeah,
they might not look exactly like they are in that movie, but they're reptilians.
Yeah,
well, he brought up Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas right away when he was breaking the news to me about adrenochrome. He said, "Did you see that movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "That's what those kids are meant for. They're meant for it. That's where they get the adrenochrome from." He said.
Wow.
And he also said, "Yeah, movies are used like that as like a form of plausible deniability." He said.
Mm-hmm.
He said they'll add little tidbits of truth in movies on purpose, and they'll do that on purpose. So if somebody tries to bring it up, like, "Oh, you got that from
Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica,
and video games too, like Kruger and
video games,
that type of stuff. And we've had people comment like, "This guy's literally just
getting it from a
video game."
It's
and
like, no, the video game was disclosing stuff.
Solar Warden too. That was from that NASA leak that we were talking about earlier, and they're starting a computer game now called Solar Warden. They're in the trying to get funding for it right now.
Yeah, interesting.
And like that one, there was one guy on his deathbed who showed a photo of an ET. I think I remember hearing David Wilcock talk about this years ago, but he showed a photo of an ET, and like in no time, it went viral. Like everybody saw this ET, and in no time there was a toy put out in stores, like within like a week or two, like immediately. A toy that looked exactly like the ET in the photo, and they're like, "Oh no, he was just showing a photo of this toy."
Yeah,
I mean, they do that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I saw that too, and I think it had the fold of skin, and that was something I remember from what's like tear ducts to like cheekbones. It had like this little fold of skin. That very first one I saw, that little drone, and I think that was like, and it was like a khaki color like that with the big black eyes. It looked pretty much like that, and I remember looking at it and seeing that fold of skin going down its face.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. I've been like on this disclosure movie kick lately. I hardly ever used to watch movies, but now I'm looking to see what I can find. And there's this movie it came out in 2020 called Alpha Code, and it says based on true events. And it's about this like officer in a secret space program who's after this woman who has been used for the hybrid program. And they talk, they're like disclosing everything. And they teach this guy like how to meditate and connect with his higher self so he can connect with the ETs. And it just blows my mind, the amount of disclosure. And it's a terrible movie. Like the acting is horrible, but the disclosure in it is worth the watch. Called Alpha Code. And
I'm gonna have to watch that.
Yeah. It's just it's everywhere. It's everywhere you look if you know what to look for.
It's anything sci-fi too is just it's all disclosure basically. That's what I've realized.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean,
man, this was a captain of the Navy told me that. Yeah, they do that for plausible deniability. That's what he called it. Yeah.
Well, that's where they get all this stuff, because people think they're just making this stuff up, and they're being very creative, but a lot of it, they're literally just getting the real information and putting it in movies and shows like Star Wars and Star Trek. Star Wars is basically Solar Warden, is what I've heard. Like a disclosure of that.
The dogs agree.
What did I say? Star Wars? No, Star Trek is basically Solar Warden, is what I've heard. And then Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, it was set up similar to that too. It was like, I was almost like, what is that, Sulu, and the other guy was like Chekhov. You know what I mean? We sat down next to each other, and it was good that we were telepathically linked, because instead of just being able to talk to each other, it was almost like we were the same mind, and we kind of went back and forth as we worked. So it was different like that.
Really?
We didn't even have to talk to each other.
Now, did your so you said it was the Battlestar Galactica ship, but I've heard that some of the ships in Dark Fleet look like the Star Destroyers from Star Wars.
Well, this was Solar Warden.
Yeah.
It looked like Battlestar Galactica. Yeah. Yeah, like the Dark Fleet ships, they were smaller, and I don't remember getting a good look at one outside. I got a good look at one of this one, because it was, I think the smaller ships can actually land on the world and stuff like that. But, the 4 kilometer long ones, you just have to take smaller craft back and forth. And I remember one time we were, just like you would off of aircraft carrier, you would take smaller boats because you can't dock them because they're so big. And I remember like looking back and seeing the ship, and it looked pretty much just like that, like a Battlestar Galactica. It had like the buttresses and, like propulsion system and all this other stuff. And it was a very dark, like haze gray, almost black. It was like a very dark gray.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes me wonder how they hide all this stuff. Is all this stuff just cloaked, like astronomers won't see it with a telescope? I mean,
it's just all cloaked. All this is cloaked.
Yeah.
And plus, it's just, I don't know. You talk about everything, just not the ships, but just everything, ETs in general. I mean, people constantly always talk about how they see things, but people just blow it off.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just the nature of human beings.
We'll see ships.
Yeah, I see.
We'll see them power up, and
I mean, they're if you're looking, they're there. I mean, they're there all the time. But how many people are actually looking up? And they won't just be there. Sometimes they'll catch my eye. Sometimes I go lay on my roof for a couple hours and I'll see something eventually,
You caught one during the day.
Yeah.
The other day.
That one didn't show up very well on film.
We uploaded to our channel. It didn't show up when we uploaded it.
Yeah, I never even did talk about that. I might as well say something about it now. I saw this, people were complaining in the comments because the video sucked, and it even sucked even worse once I uploaded it to YouTube because it just sucked the quality out of it.
And you could barely only see it when it like got brighter a couple times.
I could see this thing clear as day with my naked eye, and I was walking the dogs and something just told me to look up, and it was this tiny dot in the sky. I was like, what is that? And I was waiting for it to move. I was waiting for it to be a plane or a helicopter or something. And I watched this thing, and I just watched this thing. And it would get brighter and smaller, and it was moving very slow, and eventually just disappeared. It was there long enough for me to get it on film somewhat, but it I don't know what it was, but it was they're there. I don't know if it was just specifically for me or what.
What is that ranch in the west where they have like a
ESETI?
UFO? Huh?
ESETI?
ESETI, is that?
Yeah, we've been there, we're going there again this year for the conference. Yeah, we love ESETI.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, it's just
amazing
everywhere. There's just stuff
every day, every night. You will see. You just look up, you'll see.
It's like the veil. It's like the veil is thinner.
The veil is thinner there because of the mountain is a massive vortex, Mount Adams, and it creates this, basically like some kind of like magnetic anomaly that makes the veils thinner there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why there's a ton of activity, and it's a very sacred land as well. So
we'll be back there in July for the conference. There's a conference coming up there in July, July 15th. It's the 16th through the
15th through the 18th.
15th through the 18th. Tickets are for sale. If anybody doesn't know, go to the website. They haven't announced.
Be there,
They haven't announced all the speakers yet, but the tickets, you can purchase a ticket. So
James Gilliland, is he runs it. He's awesome.
So I mean, it's all coming forward. They can't. Hopefully, they'll get to a point where they just can't hide it no more, and they'll have to just
It's getting there now. Now they're trying
People are going to have to accept it. Yeah.
Well, you see them gearing up to do their own UFO disclosure. That's going to be this controlled, partial BS, complete, like
limited hangout,
ridiculously, limited hangout disclosure. That's and you notice like they try to say it's a threat, like UFOs are a threat, and it's like they want you to be afraid of it. And, yeah,
this is more control.
It's all but it's not going to work. Obviously,
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess now we really will wrap this up.
Yeah. For the fifth time that we've tried.
No, it's fascinating. We can talk about this stuff all day, but we've taken up enough of your time, Daryl. Thank you so much for doing this. Guys, we hope you enjoy this. If you're just catching part 2, go back and watch part 1. There's some fascinating stuff, and can't say enough. Thank you, Daryl.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, anytime.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, purchase tickets for the Sedona conference, July 23rd to the 25th. Familyoflight.info. Aaron and I will be speaking there. Grab a ticket, come hang out with us. Only $333 for the weekend. So, all right, have a great night, guys, and we will catch you next time.